So in the second part of our talk, I wanted to talk to you a bit about the relationship between the government and the security vendors. We all know there's some lobbying happening, and there's some initiatives where there's an attempt to collaborate between the two. So first of all, maybe you can tell us a little bit, what kind of relationship is there between the government and the security vendors?
So as I think was speaking about earlier, I don't know if it was on this interview or another one, but trusted relationships. I think at Homeland Security, we really focused on creating trusted relationships with private industry, security vendors included in that, critical infrastructure groups that we work with on a regular basis. One of the things that our secretary announced at RSA this year was we're also opening up an office in San Francisco specifically to have more in-bed relationships there in that community, so that we can create the important networking that needs to happen between government and industry, that we can understand where they're going with their products, what the roadmap looks like, and also influence that as we can for those things that are specific needs for government. I think creating those trusted relationships so that we are part of those conversations and they're part of our conversations are really important to making sure that the government specific needs are being heard and addressed in the roadmaps of things that they're developing, but also that we're hearing from them where they're seeing trends and change in the cybersecurity community, the environment, and that we're also taking that into account in the things that we're doing for the broader .gov, from protection mechanisms at the boundary to the things that are being mandated across the .gov for implementation, secure the .gov. So
no, it's okay. You actually answered my next question a little bit, which is really about the support of government in the new security startups. I see kind of like a dozen of them every month, and I was just wondering if there's any special funding or support the government is providing to innovative security startups, or to cultivate new technologies.
There definitely is. I know within Department of Homeland Security, we have a whole directorate called S&T, Science and Technology, that is focused specifically on that. So what we do with them, the interaction between, NCIC US-CERT and S&T, is that we provide them requirements. So things that our cyber analysts need, our incident response team needs, things that we're just not seeing available in commercial tools, scripts that we're using that are beyond their temporary kind of lifespan that need to be rolled into an enterprise capability. So entities like S&T can then create those requirements into pilot programs, be it something that's in a startup, a venture type environment, or something that is developed, engineered, and then transition to practice. The whole idea is to transition that over to industry, leveraging those communities that they have relationships with, like startups, things that are even fed into organizations like DARPA or Incutel, if you know that organization that comes out of the community. Those are areas that S&T also works through. So there's a number of leveraged relationships that they can leverage through the S&T relationships back into industry, giving them a requirements, transitioning that to practice, so that it can meet the needs of the specific needs of government that aren't always readily available in some commercial products, but it can be modified or tweaked to specifically meet those needs.
That's actually great. We just had released the first kind of crowd effort. So a group of users on Peerlyst created the first tool that was created by the community, and it was for managing a security budget. So we'd love to share some of this information of, hearing just what kind of tools would be great to have the community create for itself.
Agreed. I think, government doesn't know everything, and we clearly are leveraging what we see in commercial. I think as a user, the commercial tools are above and beyond things that we need, and sometimes it just needs little tweaks to make it specific to the individual user. And so trying to ensure that we're part of those roadmaps, that we're part of that conversation and that dialogue is something that we're definitely interested in doing, and vice versa, that we know where those tools are going and that we're understanding what their roadmap looks like, and that we can be part of that conversation as well.
That's great. And do you feel like there's any difference in this administration versus, maybe predecessors when it comes to cybersecurity policy? Do you think that there's a different approach to security?
I think security changes and evolves so quickly. It doesn't always keep up with the administrations, meaning that it's not going to be stagnant from any administration to the next or change drastically. It's changing and evolving every day, every minute. And so it's not going to be respective to those specific administrations. It's because it just evolves too quickly.
Hmm.
And so I think what I see happening is the different authorities that are coming out of congressional actions to different administrations or to different organizations like NCIC and US-CERT to address the specific needs of things where we saw a gap. So one of the things that we saw from last year that came out of Heartbleed, and I talked about this earlier, is that the government wasn't able to scan for the vulnerability as quickly as we were seeing adversaries scan for that. That's a gap in capability and need. And so Congress acknowledged that. They passed some authorities that allowed us to scan in almost real time as soon as those vulnerabilities are disclosed to ensure that the government isn't left exposed to that and that we can get
Hmm.
that patched and prioritized. It's all about the prioritization of
Right.
resources, these limited resources, and being able to help us help the departments and agencies prioritize that is hugely important. And I see both Congress and the administration focusing on helping prioritize these limited resources towards those things as these real world events basically put a bright light on them.
And do you feel like there's any particular policy related to vendors kind of lobbying in Washington or trying to promote? Are they trying to promote the specific agenda that's typically, more about prioritizing security in the government, or is it, getting on the table something that's more kind of suited for their particular product?
So I think you see a lot of folks lobbying for their particular product on the Hill. I think that's just part of business development. But I
Yes.
think and good for them. That's their bottom line matters, and
Yeah.
you want them to focus on that. I think where I see things coming out of the different committees that we work with on the Hill are specifically addressing the things that we see most easily exploitable. The things that we see from an incident response perspective happen again and again. Congress wants to hear from incident responders like myself about those things, and then trying to and what we really try to push is don't push a particular function or a particular application or even process because you're addressing yesterday's problem in cyber. It evolves so quickly that you don't want to
Mhm.
legislate a fix that is addressing something that happened yesterday. So trying to
Right.
keep up with that evolution of things and make sure that it's not any one product or any one functionality that you're legislating or that you're mandating, because it's not going to keep up with cyber. It evolves too quickly.
Yeah.
Right now, the big focus is on two-factor authentication and ensuring that we're pushing out the two-factor authentication across the .gov and leveraging whatever that happens to be it a PIV card, be it a token, be it other kinds of mechanisms that are out there, not legislating the product, but talking about the guidance and the mandate around ensuring that you have a mitigation to ensure that you're not applicable to whatever that exploit happens to be around that. So trying to change that mentality is what we're really trying to focus on, and I see Congress understanding that too, specifically because of some hard lessons learned. A lot of the FISMA Act of 2002 it wasn't really modernized until 2014. 12 years is a long time in cyber. And so ensure that they understand that when you put something in legislation, it needs to be broad enough to evolve with the threat is really important and something that we're really focusing on.